Back in the 1950s and 60s, when rock combos had taken a firm foothold in the music scene, all of the main instruments, guitar, bass, and drums, had one common character to their sound. They all had a sharp attack, and then the sound faded out. But musical ears and musical arrangers also like to hear sustaining type sounds, the types of sounds that were normally assigned to a string section for orchestral and other forms of popular music. For the rock combo, those types of sounds were assigned to the organ. After all, it was the only instrument that had a fully sustaining sound. The thing is, though, portable combo organs ranged from sounding rather bland to sounding just downright cheesy. A lush arrangement played by a real string section can sound incredibly gorgeous. The exact same arrangement played on a combo organ? Not so much. So the race was on to develop a keyboard instrument that went beyond the organ to give a realistic impression of strings. In this episode of Synth Wizards, we'll round up some of the contenders in that race, including some of the very first string machines. The first keyboard to duplicate strings realistically was the invention of Harry Chamberlain, which he demonstrated at the NAMM show way back in 1956. The Chamberlain keyboard used meticulously recorded tapes of various instruments and rhythms, and Chamberlain was awarded several patents for his inventions. Pressing a key caused the tape for that note to get pulled across a playback head. It sounded realistic because it played actual recordings of real instruments. One of the most popular sounds from the Chamberlain was called Three Violins. It was three elderly ladies from the Lawrence Welk Orchestra, recorded in a bedroom in Chamberlain's house in California. And with those tapes installed, keyboardists could finally cover string parts realistically. But the early Chamberlain instruments were quite large and not designed to be moved about. They had no internal chassis to keep everything rigid, so simply moving one across the room could misalign all of the tape heads. A Chamberlain, therefore, was certainly not ideal for rock combos. He purposely ignored a huge potential market. So, it was up to Harry's window cleaner to take things to the next level. Bill Franson must have shown considerable ambition. Formerly a uranium prospector, he next started a window cleaning operation and was hired as such by Chamberlain. But soon, he was offered a better position.
Bill, I think you have a lot more to offer than just window cleaning. How about you start selling Chamberlain instruments?
To be honest, I think I do quite well at it.
I agree.
In the blink of an eye, Franson was suddenly promoted to being the Chamberlain Company's only salesman. With this change of fortune, Franson was put in charge of traveling the United States, selling Chamberlain instruments to music stores, juke joints, and anyone who would give him an audience.
Excuse me, ma'am. Have you heard of the Chamberlain musical keyboard?
No, thank you.
The Chamberlain was creating so much of a stir, in fact, that the American Federation of Musicians fought to ban them in live performances, on the argument that it would put many union players out of work. One day in 1962, Franson turned on the radio in his apartment, then discreetly walked out the door. He had taken Chamberlain sales to new heights, and then suddenly, he disappeared. For months, no one knew where Bill Franson was. He, along with two Chamberlain Model 600s, had simply vanished. As it turns out, Franson had boarded a ship to England, where he began looking for a company which could manufacture his instrument, which was simply a Chamberlain 600 with a name badge replaced with one that read Franson. An engineering company called Bradmatic Limited rose to the challenge. Bradmatic recognized several ways to refine this Franson instrument to make it more portable and reliable, and they soon began selling what was now called the Mellotron. At the NAMM show in 1965, both Mellotron and Chamberlain exhibited their keyboards, and both companies realized that they were selling a similar product. And in a heated meeting that followed, both parties discovered that they had been foxed by Franson.
This Mellotron of yours is using my patented mechanism.
And we paid for the rights to use it.
No one paid me.
We paid Bill Franson. He's your representative.
Was my representative. I haven't heard from him in years.
Chamberlain found out that his invention had been sold without his knowledge, and Bradmatic discovered that they had bought the rights to something that wasn't for sale. To resolve the issue, Bradmatic paid £30,000 to Chamberlain for the technology and agreed that Mellotrons would only be sold in the UK, while Chamberlain would cover the North American market unimpeded. As a side note to the licensing arrangement, Mellotrons were able to use the 3 violins tapes, and with those tapes playing in a portable and reliable instrument, realistic string sounds were now available to studios, recording artists, and touring bands, albeit only those with sizable incomes. The first 2 Mellotron models had side-by-side 35-note keyboards. They cost about half the price of a house, and they found a diverse audience. Princess Margaret adored hers and played it regularly, much to the dismay of Lord Snowdon. The princess apparently played rather poorly. L. Ron Hubbard also acquired one, and it still sits in his office at St. Hill Manor, the Scientology headquarters in Britain. But more importantly, Led Zeppelin, the Moody Blues, and the Beatles used them on hit recordings, cementing the iconic sound of the Mellotron in the minds of musicians to this day.